Hello students, now it's time to study history, and before I start this new chapter, I will like to tell you that when you are learning history, student, take it as a story and connect the past with your present, connect the events, so you will be able to remember, you will able to understand, and once you understand nicely, then it will be very easy to understand it also. And if you are understanding it nicely, then you will not find history anytime boring, you will find it as interesting as story, right? So take it as a history. In first lesson of history, you learn about the different types of map, introduction of medieval period, what was the period of that medieval period, how different things were innovated in that medieval period. Then in second chapter you learn, right? I am just making you the connection of the chapters, right? From 700 till 1700 it's called medieval period. So in second chapter you learn that after ancient time, Raja Harshvardhan, Gupta dynasties, they gradually started decline. Then new kingdoms established. Means those who were the ministers, those who were Samanta, subordinates, they gradually centralized power and they became ruler. Once they become powerful, they establish their ruler. So again, it is a history, it is a tradition. When one ruler is powerful and it is on throne, then there is always another dynasty, another ruler who is try to defeat that ruler. So gradually, Delhi Sultanate established in India, on Indian subcontinent. So what is the story about Delhi Sultanate that you will learn in this chapter? So let us start this chapter. Chapter heading, chapter 3, the Delhi Sultans, right? And all this dynasty we are calling Delhi Sultanate. Okay, in chapter 2 we saw that regions like the Kaveri Delta become the center of large kingdom, right? You remember? I explained you in live classes also, in that previous video also you learned that how agriculture and irrigation system was developed, how temple construction spree were built, and king used to construct splendid temples to show their power. And temples were not only for the religious or worship purpose, but they become the center for economic, social and political activities of that kingdom. So did you notice that there was no mention of a kingdom with Delhi as its capital? Right? Till that time, Delhi was not in center. That was because Delhi became an important city only in 12th century. Right? Till that time, all the Samantas, subordinate, they centralized their power in their region. But when Mongol and other Afghan rulers and they started coming towards India, then Delhi became the important city in 12th century. So in this chapter you will learn about that how Delhi became main center of the power concentration, and how this Delhi Sultanate expanded. Here I will present two videos also with this my description of this chapter. So you will come to know about the expansion of Delhi Sultan. You will understand how this Delhi Sultan established, who established it first, and gradually how it expand. And no doubt at the end of the chapter you will also learn that how it declined. Right? It is always a story of born of any dynasty, then rising and then decline. Each and every time it's happened with all these rulers, right? Then in next chapter you will learn about Mughal Empire. So same story you have to keep and you have to connect that how Mughal Empire rise, how it uplift and then decline. So we are talking about Delhi Sultans, Delhi Sultanate. So let us start here in table 1. Here you can say, but the we will talk about table 1, but for syllabus we have just cut this table. You don't need to learn, or this dateline, all this Delhi Sultan's dateline given, no need to learn, but keep in mind that these all are the names of the rulers of the Delhi Sultan from 11th till 14th century. Okay. Delhi first became the capital of kingdom under Tomara Rajputs, who were defeated in the middle of the 12th century by the Chauhans. You remember Chahamnas and Chauhans were the last ruler of south, and then gradually they were defeated by Tomara Rajputs. Rajasthan. They gradually come towards Rajasthan. It was under the Tomaras and Chauhans that Delhi became an important commercial center. Many rich Jain merchants lived in the city and constructed several temples. Coins minted here, called Deliwal, right? So each and every rulers they used to mint coins on their name. So in the end, their reign, this type of coins were circulated. So these rich Jain merchants also minted coins, and it was known as Delhi Wal. Had wide in circulation means why this word is used here, circulation, because for exchange there was a common, like we are at present we are having rupee, but at that time coins were there in circulation for exchange. So this Jain merchants, very rich merchant coins were in circulation. The transformation of Delhi into a capital that controlled vast areas of the subcontinent started with the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate in the beginning of the 13th century. Then gradually Chauhan and Rajput dynasties declined, and then Delhi became the capital, and it started controlling vast areas of the subcontinent, and it started in around 13th century. Take a look at the table, means here in table 1 you can find that after Rajput and Chauhan's dynasty, here you can see. You remember in previous chapter you learn about the Pala, Rashtrakuta, Gurjarar, Pratihara. After that, Prithviraj Chauhan. Prithviraj Chauhan is also very famous and very powerful ruler in around 11th century, 11th 12th century. Then Turkish ruler came to India. Kutubuddin Aibak, Samshuddin Iltutmish, Razia, Ghiyazuddin Balban. These all are the rulers of Delhi Sultanate. So just refer table 1 for the name of the rulers. So you will find that sequence, but no need to learn the date line. So here it is given that identify the 5 main dynasties that together made the Delhi Sultanate. The Delhi Sultans built many cities in area that we now known as Delhi. Here you can see in this map, ruler has constructed Delhi as their main capital, but around Delhi they have constructed many cities. There are 7 cities, and this map is given in your map expert also. You have to mark the 7 cities of Delhi. This Adilabad, Tughlaqabad, Siri, Jahanpanah, Hauze Khas, Delhi Kuana, Hauze Sultani, Firozabad. So these were the 7 cities of Delhi Sultan. Delhi Sultan built many cities in the area that we now known as Delhi. At present also it is considered as a one Delhi only, but at that time 7 cities of the Delhi it was known. And look at map 1 and look at Delhi 1, Kuana, Siri and Jahanpanah. These are the different cities they are asking for. Then I told you about this table 1. Here you can find the different dynasties of Delhi Sultanate. Now the important topic of this, how we come to know about Delhi Sultans, who were the Delhi Sultans, how we come to know about their stories and all. So although inscriptions, coins, architectures provide a lot of information, especially valuable are histories, Tariq and Tawarik. Right? In video also you come to know about this word Tariq and Tawarik. Right? At present, what is the meaning of Tariq for us? That is a date. But here we are considering date for a particular period, particular day. But at that time, Tariq means incident. They used to write incident. Suppose if one incident is there, they used to tell Tariq. And if many events are there, many incidents are there, they used to tell it Tawarik. Written in Persian, the language of administration under the Delhi Sultan. I will suggest you students, please underline this. Persian was the language of administration under Delhi Sultans. Here you can see in this picture the process of Tariq, how they were making. First, here you can see the author of Tariq were learned men. Mostly they were secretaries, administrators, poets and courtiers who both recounted events and advised rulers on the governance, emphasizing the importance of just rule. Now what is just rule? Here it is given. But let me first explain you again here. Here you can see that first they are making paper. On that they are writing. After writing they just pour gold, so they can write the word what they have written in Tariq. It become the highlighted with gold, and then they are binding it. So this is the process of making twarik. Now, circle of justice is very important term. Here also in last two lines you understand that most of the time they were given advice emphasizing the importance of just rule, means justice in the country or in the dynasty. Here, Fakir-e-Mudabbir wrote in the 13th century. In his book, he has written, "A king cannot survive without soldiers, and soldiers cannot live without salaries." Right? You can see the dependence on each other. King cannot survive without soldier, means always king need army, soldiers to protect the kingdom. And soldiers cannot survive without salaries, because soldiers have to live their life to take care of the family, so they need salaries. Salaries come from the revenue collected from the peasants. Now how king will give them salary? The money, the revenue which is collected from the peasants. But peasants can pay revenue only when they are prosperous and happy. Now the question is, how peasants will pay the revenue? If they are happy, they are prosperous, they are getting good crop production, only they will be able to pay revenue. So this happens when the king promotes justice and honest governance. So all these things, when it will happen? When king is honest, king is promoting justice in governance. So this is a continuously circle. King depend on soldier, soldier depend on salary, salary come from peasants, and peasant will give revenue when king will be honest. So this is called the circle of justice. Hope children you got this. This is just introduction of Delhi Sultans, how they established their kingdom over Delhi, and how they spread their kingdom. So we'll continue this lesson in next. There are two videos, one by one, so you will come to know about this Twarik, and you will get the introduction of Delhi Sultan. Okay students.
How did we come to know about the Sultans of Delhi? It is through the coins, inscriptions, and architecture of the buildings. These sources have given us a lot of information about the reign and administration of the Delhi Sultanate. The most valuable information was obtained through Tariq or Twarik, as it is called in plural. These were written in Persian, which was the official language of the Delhi Sultanate. The authors of these Twariks were learned men like secretaries, administrators, poets, and courtiers, etc. They mainly lived in Delhi and wrote Twariks to get rich awards from the sultans. They advised the sultans on how to rule their kingdom and emphasized on fair and just rule. They also advised the sultans to preserve an ideal social order that was based on birthright and gender discrimination. Let us now learn about how the manuscripts of Twariks were made. There were 4 stages. Firstly, the paper was prepared. Then, the text was written on it. After that, gold was melted to highlight the text, and finally, the manuscripts were sent for binding. Minhas-e-Shiraz wrote a Twarik that accounts the administration of Razia Sultan. Razia Sultan was the daughter of Iltutmish. She became the Sultan in the year 1236, but was removed from the throne in the year 1240. According to Minhas, She was more qualified and able than her brothers. But no one was happy with her being a sultan and rule independently because it went against the ideal social order created by God. His Tariq played an important role in the dethronement of Razia Sultan.
Razia Sultan, the first and the last woman ruler of the Delhi Sultanate. In the early years of 13th century, fierce warriors were fighting to reign over Delhi. Among the warriors, there was a woman named Razia, who was the only female sovereign in the entire history of Islamic civilization across the world. Belonging to a slave dynasty, her accession to Delhi Sultanate's throne shook the established customs of nobility and power. Razia's father, Shamsuddin Iltutmish, had risen to be the Sultan of Delhi from being a Turkish slave. He raised Razia to be a bold young girl, training her alongside with his three sons in governance and military. Razia was trained from childhood by her father in warfare, in administration, in statesmanship, and even before he had made his will to appoint her his successor, he had gone on a campaign to Gwalior, and at that time also he left Delhi in charge of Razia and not in charge of his sons. The Sultan considered Razia equal to 20 of his sons in ability. She assisted her father in state affairs and never hesitated in giving her opinion. On his deathbed, Iltutmish nominated Razia as his successor, becoming the first sultan to nominate a woman as heir. However, her accession was challenged by Turkish nobles. Not wanting to see a woman ruler, her brother Rukmunuddin Firuz was set up to the throne by the nobles. Firuz indulged in hedonistic pleasures and left governance to his mother, dissatisfying the citizenry. In November 1236, both his mother and he were assassinated, and then Sultan Razia ascended the throne under the name Jalalat ud-Din Razia. She refused to be addressed as Sultana as it meant wife or mistress of a sultan. Service to her by saying Razia Sultan. She herself said that the word Sultan, if added as a suffix, is used for a consort or a princess. I am Sultan Jalaluddin Razia. That was the name in which she ascended the throne and in the name in which she struck her coins. So we should call her Sultan Razia. She was a monarch in her own right, not the wife of a monarch or the. Razia adopted a gender neutral attire and abandoned the parda, angering the traditional Muslim society. She ordered coins to be minted in her name, Pillar of Women, Queen of the time, Sultan Razia, daughter of Shamsuddin al-Tutmish, openly exercising her power. Being a secular leader, Razia prioritized both traditional and scientific education and established a host of schools, academies, centers for research, and public libraries. Despite her welfare schemes, her rule did not please the Turkish nobles, who could not accept being ruled over by a woman. They made a plan to revolt against her, and so her opponents cast rumors about her relationship with one of her stable managers, who was an Abyssinian slave, Jamaluddin Yaqut. And so, an Abyssinian slave being given such an important position as being made the head of the stables, which is again an essential part of her army, and also he is a mentor to the Sultan, would itself be objectionable, and that is one of the main reasons that was used. That was, I think, that went against her. The fact that she had the independence and she had the guts and the courage to go against the Chehalgani Turks, who were all powerful in this. This angered Malik Ikhtiaruddin al-Dunya, her rumored childhood lover. He conspired a coup against Razia, imprisoning her at Kila Mubarak and helping her brother Muizuddin Behram Shah take control of the throne. However, Al-Dunya and Razia later got married. Some believe they fell in love, while some believe she did it to avoid death. She went to Fatima and she fought with Malik Al-Dunya. He imprisoned her, and later on she sent a proposal, or he sent a proposal. I don't know how it happened, but anyway, they decided to join forces together, and she got married to him. So the fight, whatever was a political one. The marriage may have been a political alliance. In In 1240, Razia and her husband Altunia decided to seize and reclaim the lost kingdom from her brother. However, they were defeated in the ensuing battle and fled Delhi. They were caught midway and killed by a band of men believed to be her brother's conspirators. Sultan Razia died at the young age of 35 on 13th October 1240, after only reigning for 4 years. Remember her legacy and share this video.